Hey guys, Keaton here with TechSmart, and today we're going to be unboxing and reviewing the brand new LG G Pro 2. So this device is definitely one of the bigger phablets we've seen out on the market, coming in with a display of 5.9 inches, and you definitely do notice its heft when holding it in your hands. So just as a quick note here, this is the Korean model and does feature some extra goodies within the box, such as an extra battery, but we'll go ahead and take a look at that in the unboxing. So I can't speculate and tell you if this is the same exact contents you'll receive with the international model or the United States variant. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dig into the box to see what we get. So popping at the top, we are immediately greeted with the phone. So setting that aside, we have our literature from LG, and then the standard carrier literature, which I cannot read because it's in Korean. So digging in further, we have two batteries, which is fantastic because that's 3200 milliamp hour batteries. So times two, that's 6400 milliamp hours of just straight up battery. So this phone is definitely going to be going for a long time. We have our micro USB charging and syncing cord, our USB wall adapter, and then we have an additional battery pod to go and charge the spare battery while the other one is being used on the phone. So let's go ahead and unscathe the device and take the plastic off both the front and rear. After doing that, we can see how beautiful and big this display is. So let's go ahead and power on the device and hop on over to the review portion of this video. So kicking it off with some hardware and starting at the front, we have our 5.9 inch 1080p IPS LCD display with a pixels per inch count of 373. At the top, we have a speaker and 2.1 megapixel camera, and there's no physical buttons on here, so they're all on screen, so you'll be able to navigate via your home screen, back, etc. So coming to the bottom of the device, we have a microphone and micro USB charging port. At the top, we have our 3.5mm headphone jack and IR blaster. Now, there's no ports or any buttons on the sides, so at the back, that's where most of our controls lie. We have our volume rockers and our power on button. And then above that, we have our 13 megapixel camera, which does shoot Ultra HD video, and then we have an LED flash. And then coming to the lower portion of the backing, we have our speaker, which is quite loud and does sound very sharp. So hop into specifications here. The G Pro 2 does feature a quad-core Snapdragon 800 processor clocked in at 2.26 GHz, 3 GB of RAM, a 3200 milliamp hour battery, which will just keep this phone lasting for days upon end, Android 4.4 with the Optimus UI, so that's just LG's skin, and then we have LTE-A capabilities. So just rounding out the hardware section here, I really am a big fan of the look and feel of the G Pro 2. It feels a lot more solid, and I think the matte back does add to this because I'm not a big fan of any slimy device, and that was really prominent and probably the biggest gripe I have about the LG G Flex or LG G2. But overall, it's very fast, and I do like the specifications on the device. So moving on to software, the LG G Pro 2 does feature Android 4.4 KitKat with Optimus UI or LG skin plastered all over it. And to be honest, I'm not a big fan of any skin on any type of Android device because I really like the unadulterated experience with just a vanilla Android experience. So the Google Play edition of phones or just these standard Nexus devices. But I didn't really mind the skin here. It wasn't as intrusive that I've seen in the past. And personally, I just like the software implementations that LG incorporated within the G Pro 2. So the G Pro 2 does rock many new features, and one of these is the one-handed mode. So say you want to go and resize the display because it's just too big for you and you can't really reach 5.9 inches just across with your hands. You can go and resize the kind of screen, and it does work very nicely if you want a more personal experience. So another one of these features is being able to multitask. So say you wanted to watch a YouTube video on the top portion of your device and you want to have your Twitter client open on the bottom portion. This is now possible. And personally, I like the whole multitasking aspect on any smartphone because sometimes when we get displays that are 5.9 inches, you kind of want to be able to split it up and just have a small little portion on the display dedicated to that specific app. So one of the features that really stood out to me was not code. So instead of typing in an alphabetical or numerical password or just swiping around on the screen, you can go and tap on your screen in a certain kind of pattern and we'll go in and unlock the device. So I think this is pretty cool because sometimes I don't always want to turn on my device and have people see my password, and I just like to be able to just tap it. And it's just something we haven't seen before, and I think LG is really pushing this out as a new way to kind of go and unlock your device. So overall, I'm a big fan of the software found in the G Pro 2. While I'm not a big skin guy, I don't really think the Optimus UI is that bad to where I wouldn't want to use the device. And I think the hardware definitely does accustomed to this and kind of just gives you a nice, well-rounded experience. So up next here is the display. So the display is definitely one of the biggest selling points on this device as it is a 5.9 inch 1080p IPS LCD display with a pixels per inch count of 373. And let me tell you, this display is massive. It is the definition of a phablet, and I'm not all that against it because I think the size definitely is accompanied by the specifications on the phone. And typically with bigger phones, sometimes they crap out on resolution or there's not as many pixels per inch, but this is definitely not the case. It's 373 pixels per inch it's just jam-packed with just goodness here. From viewing angles to sharp text to just watching video and playing games, everything looked fantastic on here, and color accuracy and representation was top-notch and looked exactly like it would look on a smaller device with a higher pixels per inch count. And also, this display makes the colors so vibrant, it is warm, it's fantastic. Truly, this display is one of the best I've ever seen, and I think this is something that is probably what's keeping me towards this device, and which will probably convert this to being my daily driver. But seriously, viewing angles and colors are just so spot on that it just made playing games or watching videos or even browsing the web such an enjoyable experience. So for optics, the G Pro 2 definitely takes care of business on both the front-facing camera and the rear. On the front, we have a 2.1 megapixel camera, and that's going to be perfect for Skype, Snapchat, or just selfies, and really just gets the job done. And towards the back is one of the diamonds on this phone. It's a 13 megapixel rear-facing camera, and let me just tell you now, this camera is fantastic. And typically, I would just stick with my iPhones for the camera, but I actually took this out a lot and was shooting because of just how much detail the 13 megapixel optic image stabilized camera could really encapsulate. And it doesn't just stop there. It also shoots 4K video or Ultra HD video at 30 frames per second, and it won't really do it justice because this video is uploaded in 1080p. But if you want to go and click on screen right now or check the link in the description below, you can watch a 4K video sample that we took. So it really embodies this entire experience is how LG's software allows you to change the aspect ratios, the resolution, and just allows you to change the different type of modes when shooting photos or video. And that's something that I really did like about the device. So overall, the camera is definitely one of the paramount features on the G Pro 2 and is a pretty big selling point for me because it can shoot 4K video. So transitioning on to some internals, let's go ahead and test out some benchmarks. So we're going to be testing GFX Bench, Geekbench, and Quadrant to kind of get a good representation of what this device can do in terms of power. So all these different benchmarks test different things. Quadrant and Geekbench are very similar as they test all the device, as GFX Bench, which puts the Adreno 330 chip within the G Pro 2 to the test to kind of see what it can do to the maximum potential. So up first is Geekbench. So Geekbench will go and test the phone as a whole and kind of put it through all its paces. So after the test has concluded, we received a single core score of 892 and a multi-core score of 2,381. Up next is Quadrant. So Quadrant has some different criteria for when testing the device, but we'll again test the G Pro 2 as a whole. So after our test has concluded, we received a score of 20,267, which is definitely one of the higher ones out in the market right now compared to other smartphones with these similar specifications. So finally, for our last benchmark here, we're going to be testing out GFX Bench, which again will test the Adreno 330 GPU found in the G Pro 2. So it's going to take us through for more of an interactive benchmark here, but again, this is just to test out the GPU on the device. So after the test has ended, we received a score of 567 on the Manhattan render and 1350 on the T-Rex render. So both of these stats are pretty nice, and it's definitely going to be a nice phone in terms of computing graphics or just playing games on the phone as a whole. So overall, I would say the G Pro 2 does handle pretty well against other smartphones in terms of benchmarking and just testing out more of the internals on the phone. So as smartphones get bigger, battery life typically does not, and with the G Pro 2, while the battery life isn't amazing for being a phablet, it's definitely respectable. So throughout my week's worth of testing, I was able to get around 10 to 11 hours worth of battery life, and I was using this phone pretty heavily, from tweeting to watching videos to just browsing the web, and killing it within a day wasn't impossible, but I was really happy with the battery life because typically my iPhone lasts me around 5 hours on a single charge because I'm using it so heavily. And I think the best thing with the Korean model here is the fact that you get two batteries, so you can go and stick the other battery in a pocket or just in a bag, and you're able to use this device and kill it within 10 to 11 hours, at least just through my testing, and then just swap in the extra battery. So you're going to be getting tons of battery life here and not have to sacrifice performance or being able to cut back because you just don't want your phone to die. So overall, I was really happy with the battery life on this phone, and I think having two batteries is definitely one of the biggest selling points with the Korean model. So moving towards one of my favorite categories on the LG G Pro 2, it's the new features. So between Notcode and being able to shoot 4K video, which is just fantastic, I really did enjoy all the new implementations LG featured on the device. I really think 4K video just is a big selling point for me because I want to be able to shoot 4K video, although it does take up a ton of storage. I was just enjoying the 4K experience, and it looked really good when playback with the big 5.9-inch display. So going off that, it's the display. So going into the review, I didn't think the display would look that sharp, or because it was so big, all the pixels wouldn't look good, and just color representation would look horrible. But this is definitely not the case, and I was really surprised, and I kind of got to owe the phone an apology because I didn't think this display would look good at all. But again, color representation and accuracy, and it just is a nice experience throughout. And then finally, it's the look and feel. I really do like how the phone feels. You're picking up the phone whenever you're using it, so if it doesn't feel good, chances are you're not even going to want to use it. And that was the case for some other devices that LG has manufactured, but this was not for the LG G Pro 2, as I really am a big fan of the matte backing. So in the end, I would definitely recommend the the LG G Pro 2. I'm a big fan of the 5.9-inch display and the 32 gigabytes of internal storage and just the 4K video capabilities. It's all fantastic, and I think this phone has truly knocked it out of the park and come to the table with specifications that are just banging. Also, I'm a big fan of Android 4.4 KitKat with the Optimus UI, as I didn't feel the Optimus skin was that intrusive, as I have found it to be on other devices LG has manufactured. And personally, I am a big fan of Knock Code. I use it to unlock my device every day, and I just feel like LG has stepped up their game with their software implementations on the G Pro 2. So in terms of pricing here, it's kind of hard to speculate for the international or the United States variants, but the Korean model here started off at around $900 for 32 gigabytes of internal storage, and I personally think this is worth it because you are getting LTE capabilities and just a whole big package of great specifications and a fantastic looking display. So overall, if you're looking for a new smartphone and a phablet is what you want, the G Pro 2 is definitely one of those options you're going to want to consider. Thank you guys so much for watching this video where we unboxed and reviewed the brand new LG G Pro 2. If you guys enjoyed this video, go and drop me a like down below so it lets me know you guys want more videos like this, and I'd be more than happy to keep them coming. Also, throw me a comment down below letting me know if you guys would buy the G Pro 2 and what your favorite feature is on a big phablet like this. Thank you guys once again, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.